what we've been focusing on today, in some respects, is the whole, should we say, how to control a conversation, how to direct it in a purposeful way. Think about it. We start off with things you can do inside of a conversation to build the pressure up so that the result you're looking for will come out of it. We've just looked at a few ways, we'll look at more later on how we can deflect the pressure if someone's trying to control the conversation by imposing it on us, the pressure to respond to them, and hence sucking us into their frame, their reality, their conversation, rather than ours. Does that make sense? So there are many ways that we can do that in terms of breaking that down. We'll look a little bit more as we go along. So at this point, let me ask you this first of all. How does it feel to be, as the influencer, to have someone just interrupt you this way? Is it pleasant, interesting, different? We'll start with Mickey over here. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it reminds me of a sales book I once read, The Power of a Positive No.
It reminds me of a sales book he read once called The Power of a Positive No.
It's empowering when you get that no, because you don't have to waste your time.
Right.
You can move on to the next person. Don't stand there and try and push through. Just move on.
So the influencer is actually kind of useful, because as soon as you get the no, you just get, okay, great, I haven't wasted my time for now on someone that's essentially not interested. I can move on, right? It's excellent. And I agree with you, by the way. You may as well get your biggest things out of the way earlier on, so you actually spend your time on the people that are worth spending the time on, right? You only have so much time in the day. Why waste it on someone that you could probably beat over the head and maybe give them a roofie just to get them to sign a dotted line? Aside from the unethical business maneuvers that you have there, it's not a healthy thing. If anyone offers you one, don't take it. But there are lots and lots of people that are a perfect match for you. Why waste your time on the others, right? You're better off actually spending time finding people that might be interested than spending an hour on one person that is more or less not. You see how that works? Go ahead. Oh, let me just turn this on for you.
And every time you say no, you fall into a deeper and deeper hypnotic sleep. Every time you say no, deeper and deeper.
It would definitely be interesting.
No. Deeper, every time you say no.
I think you caught me on that one. Do you want to come up as well? That's very good. But isn't that the utilization principle nice and classically presented there?
Well, I think that would solve the problem, which I have the question on.
Okay.
Well, it seems very difficult sometimes to break through the obstinance that people set up. And, my question is, in this exercise, is that kind of the point? Because, at some point, no matter how much hypnosis you do, if someone is totally just going to put up a wall,
right.
You can't really get past that.
That's the power of the positive no, right? The purpose here, aside from learning how to safeguard your own self in terms of not being put in a position where you're being manipulated in a way that's not useful for you, there's a couple of things. First of all, you do not have to influence everyone you meet. And you should not be in the mindset that you have to get everyone you meet. Because that is only going to lead you down that model, that road, where you try too hard, and all those things that have been working for you all week long go out the window, right? So you may as well start learning to differentiate between people who are just clearly not interested, right? Maybe you'll get them some other time when they're more open to the whole influence process. People who might be interested, who just need a little bit of tweaking, and let's see where that goes. And maybe after a little bit of tweaking, they fall into one way or the other, and that's fine. Or people who are interested, it's just they're getting in their own way because of fears about making a bad decision, fears about if it's the right thing for them, not knowing what they really want. These are the kind of people you really want, because then you're really consulting them through an influence process where it's like, great, you're looking for this sort of thing, it fits your life. It's just you don't necessarily know how to make that choice and make that move as easily and quickly as possible. And then you're away. So being able to accept a no and go, great, saved me a lot of time, is a very good thing to have.
Yeah, like, for example, when we were in Seattle at the training last year, we were, a buddy of mine lives there, and so he was in the training, and so me and one other person, so all three of us were in his car, and we're in the parking garage that he had parked in the hotel, and he lost the ticket to get out of the thing, so they were going to charge him for, you know, a lot more than it would have been if he had the ticket. And so we were trying to think, well, how can we get out of this so we don't have to pay $30?
Right.
Now, the point I'm mentioning this is we were still kind of learning how to do this, and we've seen some Darren Brown stuff. So we kind of threw the whole shotgun effect at the parking attendant. And
he's still there like this.
And so he pulled out some, you know, ticket that had nothing to do with the parking garage, but it was from the hotel. And he said, well, this is the one you're looking for. And so he ended up saying, well, I'm a little confused. I don't know what's going on. And we just kept bombarding him with different things. And then he ended up letting us go without paying anything. Right. And the reason I mention that is, you know, how can we use a situation like that where, like, you have the PCAT formula where it's very step by step? How do I approach a situation where, like, if I want to get reservations at a restaurant and they say it's full, the
first thing you got to realize is you got to weigh the costs and the benefits, right? In terms of, like, say, the $30 parking ticket, are you willing to spend the next 3 hours to build the pressure and put all the things in the right place so that you can avoid the payment? Or you pay the $30, go home and make $1,000 by ringing up a few clients and booking them in, right? So that's a decision point you have to make. It's kind of like do you save $10 on your TV set by buying it here? By going across town and buying it there. So there's a equation there as well. Secondly, you've got to think about, and really importantly, you've got to think about the ethics. For example, in this case, it seems, you know, it's funny, you use a lot of distraction and confusion, which is fantastic. But you were justified. It wasn't like you were trying to skip out without paying the ticket. It's just the ticket wasn't there, and it wasn't like you're trying to pull a fast one. It's just you're getting something that would reasonably would be a fair thing to do anyway. The key thing here is this, and the method you kind of mentioned there tends towards, you can see it could be used in an unethical way. Get someone to sign on a contract or something, for example, that they're really not interested in, and so on. In the parking garage, it's a one-shot transaction anyway, no big deal. No skin of his nose, no skin of your nose. There's no consequences. But you want to be very, very, very careful about where you use these things when there is a consequence. For example, this is, for example, where in the UK, double glazing salesmen have a worse reputation than used car salesmen have in the US, for example, right? Double glazing for windows. These are like when you have two panels of windows to keep the sound out and the heat in. And one of the reasons for it is in the 80s, they used all kinds of confusion tactics, strong-arm tactics, really bad, shall we say, processes to get people to buy these windows at inflated prices. And then, of course, they provided a shoddy product because it's just basically a cash cow for them. The problem then is the whole industry is just got distrust written all over it, right? So the ethical performers in that industry are screwed even nowadays. It's just it's left in the cultural psyche of the English people right now. Secondly, it's a one-shot transaction. Once you get beyond that, there is nothing left, and that's a consequence that you want to be very, very careful about, right? So that's just kind of the framework to put it within that. As for how do you apply it in specific circumstances, well, we've been showing you. I gave you the example of the airplane. You can get it for a simple way to get an upgrade, if it's possible, is the simple, I mean, really, usually it's the simplest things that will work. It's the simple, ask for a simple favor, as it's being performed, tag something else on, and wrap it up with some kind of justification that makes it easy and so on.
Would the PCAT formula be something you could apply to those situations?
Of course it is, and that's kind of what we talked with the objection destroyer and what we're coming on to later on. The only reason for having these little piecemeal things today is sometimes it's just too much effort to go through the whole process. Mm-hmm. The problem and creating some confusion or distracting the mind, then finding the resources and transforming it. There's a lot of processes that are involved, and it's great to have the sledgehammer. It's great to have the shotgun, as you say, but you don't want to be shooting everyone with a shotgun. Sometimes just a water pistol is enough. Yeah,
I just got a little, I was understanding everything, and now it's kind of, a lot is starting to come together, and I'm getting confused about when I go in a situation, what do I really do first? And I've heard everything you've been saying, it's just not absorbing in.
Don't worry about that for the moment. As long as you can understand the things as separate entities, we'll start bringing it together later on today. All right. Okay? Does that help, guys? Okay.